think, surprising to a lot of people that actually becomes more pleasurable when people are having peak sexual experiences later in life. That they're, the 20-year-old rock hard bodies are not actually oftentimes peak sexual experiences just because you have these attractive bodies. But the difference is, oftentimes people in their 60s are a lot more comfortable with themselves.
The thing that's unique and beautiful about human sexuality is something that we actually develop over time and with age and wisdom and experience and getting to know ourselves. It's not even there when you're 20. I mean, a 20-year-old is not going to look you in the eyes during sex and let you really see them because they don't even know themselves yet. They can't let you see what they don't see. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Catherine.
I was just looking at tickets for France and I realized we're going to be there in like 2 months.
I know, I'm so excited. So, have you gotten your tickets yet?
No, not yet. I made it about 80% of the way through and I'm still kind of like trying to decide whether to stay after or like how many extra days do I give myself in addition to the training? And it's a tough decision. What about
I
you?
know. Yeah, I'd love to stay a month after.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can leave my kids that long. Um, but I think so. I'm gonna go first and meet you guys out there for the training. My husband's gonna join the end of our trip, but we're gonna spend some time in Provence this year.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm
What are
excited.
you most excited about?
I don't know everything, but I just think it's gonna be beautiful and like a change of pace, change of routine. How about you? You've been there before.
Yeah, I was so charmed by Provence last year. I mean,
Oh,
absolutely beautiful, and I mean the food, it tastes really fresh, and it was just like very restorative. I'm really excited to go again.
yay. Okay. Well, not too far away. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
well, cool. Well, I hope you figure out your tickets. I know it's hard. It's hard to travel and make all the plans.
I know it really is. Yeah, I'll get on that. Well, thank you all for joining us. Welcome to Differentiated Love and Sex. And I'm Catherine Roebuck. I'm a relationship coach. I work with couples and individuals all over the world on growing into your potential.
And I'm Jackie Aston. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I work with individuals and couples to improve their mental health and strengthen their relationships. I've been doing this for over a decade. I love what I do. And today's podcast is about how the judgment we have towards ourselves, towards others, can get in the way of physical and emotional intimacy with our partners. So I thought we would go ahead and jump into that. Um, and Catherine, I was wondering how you've seen this with your clients.
Hmm. One of the ways I see this show up is that people have a hard time tolerating the way their body changes with age. And they get judgmental of themselves and judgmental of their partners. And there's just like difficulty being on the same team with this and just kind of metabolizing the reality that we all age. Um, I especially see it if there's like one partner that is really, really resisting that and they're really attached to youth and kind of in denial about the inevitable change of growing older, and another partner who's more accepting of the process.
Mhm,
But
mhm. Yeah, I think that's just the reality is that we're gonna look a little different in our later years than in our 20s and
mhm,
teens. And
yeah. I
that's
think
hard
people
to
who are like
control.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that's hard to accept sometimes, that change.
Yeah. Well, and I see it be particularly hard for people that, were very conventionally attractive in their youth. Like, It's because it's a way that they learn to move in the world, and a way that they learn to kind of build their identity and connections around their attractiveness, and then, just with our cultural ideas around attraction, inevitably that wears off over time, and then I see people sometimes struggle to figure out, like, how to see themselves as a desirable partner or person when, they've lost this thing that they used to have.
I think it's hard to say you're so used to defining desirability as, um, from the outside appearance. So um, if you grow up and you're getting attention for your appearance, that might feel good, but that's sort of how maybe you define what it means to be desirable, wanted, versus maybe somebody else, who realizes they, that's not something that they feel like particularly attractive, but they still can feel good about themselves as a whole and realize desirability goes beyond the superficial, the appearance. So I think it's not a problem to like, certain things about appearances or to find bodies attractive or younger bodies attractive. But I think it's sort of when couples define some desirability, especially in long-term relationships, I think that really makes it difficult to have a good sexual experience and to enjoy it and feel like uh, it's okay to be who you are.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a form of pressure that can help people actually build a deeper connection, like, if you face this head on and work out your dilemmas around it, then you can learn to connect on more of a person to person, mind to mind, heart to heart level, and actually bring more self to the connection. I see I mean, it's like a challenge, and depending on what people do around it, sometimes they emerge, actually much more confident and much more connected, and, other times, people avoid facing it directly, and then they struggle more.
Yeah, I think something else that can happen is one partner can think, well, I'm really just, attractive, and my partner isn't that attractive, or they put on weight, or they're gray, and they're not looking as good. And when I've worked with couples like this, um, what I kind of start to see is that there's one partner who's focusing so much on someone else's appearance, and it's often out of anxiety. Now they are putting the idea out there that they're feeling really confident about themselves, but when they're focusing on their partner's appearance, it actually shows a sort of a superficial level of investment for one, but it also, I think, reveals that not really connecting with themselves and their own desirability and what they're bringing to the relationship. It sort of is a way to say, like, let me keep you a little bit farther away from me. And I can do that by judging you and thinking, we don't really look that good in that, or you should change this or that. And it's really having to do with that person pushing away that possibility for deeper connection. And that judgment can work really well to create disconnection and distance.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're talking about using judgment of someone's appearance as a way to limit intimacy and vulnerability, right? And this can be happening on kind of a subconscious level that a lot of people don't realize how difficult they find it to be close and to be intimately known, or vulnerable with a partner. But, like, to let someone know that you are really into them, and to metabolize for yourself that, you're actually into someone who has some flaws, or that maybe not everybody would find super attractive, but, it can be pretty hard. It can require a lot of self-validation to be able to openly desire the person you're with.
I think that's true. I also think if you keep it superficial and say, I I like you because you have blonde hair, brown hair, whatever it is. Um, you don't really have to get to know somebody. And so, you might find someone who you're really attracted to, and, but it doesn't allow, and if that's sort of where it ends, then it's not a deeper investment of what do you care about? Who are you? Here's all of me. It's more of like, well, I like this about you. And
Mhm.
it can create low investment relationships that feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah, the limiting investment and intimacy does give us this feeling of, like, being protected, but it's just I'm not getting so attached that I have a lot to lose. And so you're also, like, limiting how how rich and sweet and meaningful does this get, you know? How much care can actually exist here.
With my clients who have, particularly with female clients whose parents have been critical about their appearance, they tend to bring to the relationship a lot of criticism about themselves. And they can also feel criticism towards their partners. But sort of this idea like, I'm never enough. You're never enough. And I think what they sometimes miss is that their parents, when they were doing that with them, were not actually really connecting with them or caring about them. But that's a way to relate. That's a way to engage with somebody else. And so that's sort of how they're operating in that relationship. And it's the hard switch to think, well, how am I going to do this differently? Because this is sort of how I know. Um, we just kind of criticize and we look for the imperfections and we feel not good enough versus let me see a whole person.
Mhm,
And you have some warts here, and I have some warts here. But there's also lots of good that I bring and that they bring.
mhm. Yeah, it's so intuitive to just do things the way your family did it. Like, the wiring is already there, you can do it automatically, it doesn't take a lot of effort. And then if you were to really face that, um, then you'd also be up against your own grief of putting together, like, wow, the way my parents related to me was actually pretty superficial. It wasn't that deep or caring. They weren't that interested in me as a person. It was more about, like, how I reflected on them. Did I make them look good by me looking good? And that they just didn't really care about my inner world or value how I felt. And that's really
Really?
hard to face that, especially if you've been operating the same way and you might realize, like, I've been doing the same thing to my partner, to myself, to my kids. A lot of people relate to themselves this way, that they act like all their value comes from how they look and how they feel doesn't really matter and their creativity and their ideas don't really matter. Like, what they bring to the table is just a body. And it's actually a very sad way to relate to yourself or anyone else if you start looking at it.
Yeah, I think it is. It is sad, picturing. I think we both have kids. Um, they they want to know that they're important and that they matter. And there's kids who don't get that from their parents, and they're always looking to see, am I getting approval or not? But kids do need to know that they matter, and not matter because they got straight A's, and not matter because they look, they're wearing something beautiful or they look a certain way. They need to know that they matter because they're human. They're children. And I think when that doesn't happen in development, it gets a lot harder to feel that they matter to themselves. They're always looking to matter to somebody else.
Yeah. Sorry, my
So
brain
how
went
do you
like
limit When there's couples that are judging each other, uh, how do you so when there's couples that are judging each other and complaining about one another, how do you help how do you help them work through that?
Uh, um, the first thing I talk about is just accepting reality that, like, you can't outrun aging or, you know, the we all have to deal with our bodies changing over time. Everyone does. And so it's like, do you want to spend most of your life fighting something that's gonna happen anyway? Or do you want to learn how to live and love and feel good in a body that is not going to stay like it was when you were 25, you know?
Sorry, excuse me.
Bless you. So I think that's the first thing is just kind of accepting reality. But I also think it's really useful to talk about the fact that this could be a way that you're dodging deeper contact with yourself and with your partner.
Um, there were a few things I was gonna say before say that in Dr. Schnarch's book, Passionate Marriage, he talks about, um, like, where the age of peak sexual experiences, and he's talking to a group, like an audience, because he did, some lectures, and he's asking the audience, "What age do you think people are having their peak sexual experiences?" And he starts to, I think, call out different, like, decades, like, in your 20s, and you see a lot of hands go up, 30s, a lot of hands go up, 40s, and as he keeps going, the hands are going down until he says he gets to 60s, and he says he sees the knowing 60-year-old who's raising her hand saying, "It's the 60s,"
Uh-huh.
or "When I'm in my 60s, I'm having my peak sexual experiences."
Uh-huh.
And, that's, I think, surprising to a lot of people that actually sex becomes more pleasurable when people are having peak sexual experiences later in life. That they're, the 20-year-old rock hard bodies, um, are not actually oftentimes peak sexual experiences just because you have these attractive bodies. But the difference is, oftentimes people in their 60s are a lot more comfortable with themselves. They can accept themselves because they realize the wrinkles are there. There's nothing that they can do about it. And if they're too tired or they don't want to, uh, you know, spend the energy worrying about what other people are thinking. But so they kind of don't give a shit. You know,
Uh-huh.
I just think that is um so can be such a helpful reminder is that actually as you age, as long as you can accept yourself, you're gonna actually have better sexual experiences because you're less worried about the peer pressure other people are thinking. You kind of come into yourself more
Yeah.
by the time.
That was one of the things that made me really fall in love with that book the first time I read it, because it's so radically hopeful. Like, there are so many people who feel disappointed about their early sexual experiences. They really weren't that good. And there can be this sense of like, I missed out on the best sex of my life if I wasn't having great sex in my 20s or 30s. And then Schnarch puts forward like, don't even worry about it, you know? Like you have plenty of time. One of the things he says is sexual potential is highly correlated with cellulite. So
Yeah.
he's saying like, but um when you're really young and your body is extremely responsive and stuff, then it's very easy to have what I call hormone and friction sex, where there's not a lot of thought going into this. There's not a lot of self going into it. You're probably not bringing a lot of um, eroticism, actually, because you don't really have to. You can just sort of rub your bodies together and stuff happens, and you're like, well, that worked, I guess. And it's actually as you get older and that stops being a reliable way to do sex that people have to start thinking about, okay, what am I actually into? What actually feels good to me? And they can slow down and have often like much deeper, more fulfilling connection
Yeah.
because they have to get to know themselves and be more open with their partner to facilitate sex.
Yes, it's not that's like a narrow experience. It's not what does he even say something like a wham bam experience? It's sort of
That's
like
right. Wham, wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am.
it's not just sort of like this narrow way of having sex. You're talking about something more expansive, and you're bringing in eroticism, you're bringing in yourself, you're
Yes.
sharing that with your partner, uh, which is
Yeah.
a different.
And to me, like that is what's so uniquely human about our sexual potential as humans is very unique because all animals can look at physical appearance to decide who to mate with, and they do. The animals put on displays of being physically attractive to attract partners, but what and animals have hormones and they can have a friction hormone based sexual experience. What humans have is the capacity for intimacy and eroticism, and that's our minds. And so the thing that's unique and beautiful about human sexuality is something that we actually develop over time and with age and wisdom and experience and getting to know ourselves. And it's not even there when you're 20. I mean, another thing Schnursh said is that, a 20-year-old is not going to look you in the eyes, during sex and let you really see them because they don't even know themselves yet, They can't let you see what they don't see yet, like, so, yeah, and it's very exciting to have a sexual connection that actually is about 2 minds meeting and 2 persons meeting.
And it's difficult to let, um, our minds meet one another too. So, like, while you're saying it's exciting, there's couples who have a lot of anxiety with that what are they seeing the other person when they're looking into my eyes? And if they, like, pull away from the connection because now they're in the head of the other person and wondering if they measure up, uh, instead of being there and letting themselves be seen and looking back into their partner's eyes, to see what's in front of them.
Mhm. So they're going into, like, self-monitoring and self-consciousness and not actually meeting.
Yes, which just kills excitement. It's
Mhm.
now anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, like, excitement is not it's maybe not the best word for it. I think of it more as, like, it's deeply meaningful and fulfilling and nourishing, and it's the kind of sex that leaves you feeling good for days instead of, you know, you're you're dissatisfied again the next day if you have
Yeah.
a more shallow connection.
Yeah, it's not just sort of a relief.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that kinda requires each person to feel good enough about themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am good, and I want the other person to think that I'm good enough, but I know I'm good enough,
Yeah.
and that judgment gets in the way of being that, believing that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
really important if you're gonna enjoy sex that you have to get out of the performance kinda mindset, and so, an obsession with how you look is playing right into the idea that this is a performance, I'm putting on a show here, and I
Uh-huh.
just have to I have to make sure that I keep all my best angles to the audience, and, uh, that is just not gonna lead to a good experience, and it's not sustainable because it takes more it takes too much out of you to relate that way.
Yeah. You sort of like, "Uh-oh, how do I look at this angle?" Or, "Do I have some gray hair?" I mean, you're not even it's hard, can't really be there. And it is a disconnect. It's a way of
Yeah.
I think it can even be I think it's subconscious sometimes, but I think it can be a way of disconnecting from that um, higher anxiety type of connection, which I know you're describing as pleasurable and meaningful and good. But at the same time, I think you know, many people have had experiences where connection or connection hasn't been pleasurable and meaningful and good. Doing that with somebody else is unfamiliar and a bit scary, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I agree. It is scary. I mean, that's one of the reasons we dodge it and we just hide behind, "No, this is about how you look or about how I look."
Mhm, mhm, mm. So is the answer we have to wait until we're in our 60s to have good sex?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I love the idea of sex getting better decade after decade. I think that's a beautiful idea. And that has been the experience of some of my older mentors that they've shared with me that it actually has played out that way for them. So, um, but I think at any age, in any connection, then you're trying to walk up to the line of like how much contact can I tolerate while treating myself and you well. And it's like working out a muscle that you're gradually building your capacity there. And so it's like, if right now you always have kind of performative sex, then you might think about like, what if we try something totally different? We slow way down, and we maybe do like a a massage or something instead, and just like get to know the rest of your body and not focus entirely on going through this pattern of positions that we're comfortable with or something. Or maybe like you take the risk of sharing with your partner some sexy dream you had or a fantasy or anything that's more about like, can I bring more of who I am into this?
That all can be helpful. I think what this is a different idea too. I think what sometimes can be helpful too, and maybe this is for a different topic for another podcast, Catherine. Um, because each partner can get in their head. Sometimes partners just switching off pleasuring each other can be helpful. So you're sort of in a receiving position and teaching yourself that you're good enough and that um, you can receive pleasure. And you're not worried about now what does the other person want from me? What do I need to do next? You're actually because there's nothing for you to do. You're just focused on receiving. So this isn't as much partner engagement in terms of meeting of the mind, but it's more about increasing your tolerance of receiving pleasure and being in it and being present with it, where you're not so worried about the other person.
Yeah, I think that is so helpful because it's a lot to try to change all the things at once and track all the things at once. And so it's like if you do struggle to feel connected with um receiving pleasure and you try to give and receive at the same time and you're not it's just a lot for your mind and your nervous system to do at once. So I think that works super well to do that.
Well, those are just a few ideas, but I think it's just a process that we learn over time, and the more we can be willing to be seen and sort of and self-validate, we can move through that a little bit quicker, I'd say, and a little bit less dependent on how we're being viewed by the other, uh, which I think allows us to take a little bit more risk in the relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Well, we just gave our listeners some ideas of things to practice. Um, well, thank you all for joining us for the Differentiated Love and Sex podcast. We're glad you guys are here.
And if you enjoyed this episode and you know of someone else who might like to listen to it, please share it.
We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks.